Why should 70% of women have anemia in India? Why should 50% mental health affect women more than men? Ask these questions.
When there is good times, there will be bad times. So there is no point in just, being ecstatic at one time and being depressed at the other.
The healthcare research is done mostly on men, and it is not done on women and children.
In tribal India, which is about 8% of our population, the average age is 11 years less than the rest of India.
My God.
We had gone to meet the Honorable President of India, and she said that in her village, at 64, she was the longest surviving person. How do we get 70 million people out of multidimensional poverty in the next whatever years we
So you're dedicating yourself
So
to
that is the prayer and the aspiration. Let's see how it goes.
Hello, I am Naghma Mulla and welcome to a new episode of Give It a Go. Today I am joined by Dr. Swati and Ajay Piramal, two visionaries who've built empires in business while keeping their compasses pointed towards social change. Swati is the chairperson at Piramal Group and has been a driving force in healthcare innovation and social impact, leading initiatives in rural health, education, and women's empowerment with a strategic vision that connects grassroots work with larger systems. Ajay, chairman at Piramal Group, has steered the business through decades of transformation, but his parallel journey in healthcare access and education has been equally defining. This conversation is about ambition and execution, the beliefs that fuel their work, and how they're creating impact that goes the distance. Dr. Swati, Mr. Piramal, thank you so much for joining us. We're so privileged to have you in this conversation. I want to start from the start, and I want to begin with you. When you had joined the business, when you were leading the business, you were just 24. That's a very early or very young age to be in that kind of position. How does that influence the way you see wealth and, the making of it, the abundance of it? How did it impact you as an individual?
So when you look at wealth, in some ways, I think I'm blessed to be in a family where always wealth was not given as much importance as I think it is given today, in the sense that as far as giving is concerned, I think we've had a very good lineage and heritage. My grandfather came to Mumbai from Rajasthan with just 50 rupees in his pocket. And he did some business. And he didn't make that much wealth in the early years, but one of the first things that he did, and this was in the early 1900s, is to go back to Rajasthan and to open, first of all, a school, which was then with what we used to call then Harijans, or which you call Dalit.
Oh.
So that in itself is a very unique thing, in the sense that Rajasthan was quite conservative, but yet he started that. The second thing that he did is to start a school for girls' education. Again, in a conservative place like Rajasthan, it was difficult to do, or it was quite pioneering. So he did that. And in that sense, if you look at the percentage of his wealth that he put into philanthropy, was much higher than what what we do, or what people talk about in the Giving Pledge. So that's the sort of heritage that we come from, and we just continue with it. So whether you have more wealth or less wealth at one stage, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You feel responsible for it in a big way.
Yes.
Add to Ajay's story, there was a riot in the town of Bagar because parents didn't want to send their daughters to school. But this school was a pioneering effort. It was late, maybe early 1930s. And still today, women's education is very important in that city, and it's 100% now, literacy.
That's incredible. And
So
this was
that
done
has been
decades
achieved.
ago.
Yeah.
because of so many years, more than
Yeah.
75 years of education, and every child is literate.
Amazing, amazing, and that's great. I mean, with you, I would actually also like to know when this kind of wealth and business and influence is there. Is there a moment? Has there ever been a moment of shift, like for the family, when you're holding the family together as well? You already have a lineage of good giving as well as good business, but as someone who's also the custodian of all of that, have there been moments where it was very important to be grounded back in where we belong and what we stand for?
Yes, even in my family, my parents' family, giving was very important. We come from the Gujarati areas, and they also were part of the freedom movement, and they also built schools. And so both families had that lineage of giving and deep spirituality, which today grounds you as a family into thinking about what is life about. And spirituality has helped us bring and keep the family together.
Yeah. And personally, you've also bridged medicine, healthcare, and business. What ties all of this together for you?
It's a sense of seva bhav. I think Ajay will also expand on that. The idea of the service, the idea, even as a young girl, I wanted to do seva bhav for a young child I saw walking on the street in Parel. And I was a medical student then, and I saw her completely paralyzed. And I thought that shouldn't be. It was a very cruel sight for a little girl not to be able to run or walk. And she had polio, and I wanted to create a no polio zone in a 10-kilometer radius in this mill area of Parel. And I did achieve it. First, I used to get 25,000 kids who had paralysis of some sort. And then it was down to 0.
Wow.
So it was a success of public health that I saw myself that it could be done very easily. I remember a little sweet story. I went to my father-in-law and I said, Babuji, the problem is that I give the vaccine and then the mother doesn't come back again. Can I give them a little piece of cloth from your mill? You make millions of meters of cloth. And can I make 1 meter of cloth for all the children who finish the 3 vaccines? And he did. So, and it was funny that everybody on the street of Lower Parel, where you travel right now, were wearing a little Baba suit made of this striped piece of cloth. And we achieved complete vaccination.
That is incredible.
And 0 polio, after
so you incentivized the whole vaccination.
Just for fun. And my father-in-law was very sweet. He agreed instantly. And it was a lesson for me to show that public health could change lives.
That is
and
fantastic.
Then I went on to study public health in the US later, because this incident really, I felt, was a turning point in a young doctor's life.
Yes. That's an incredible story. In fact, on Seva Bhav, where I was new in the sector more than 10 years ago, and I have heard you speak of Seva Bhav, and it did impact the way I became a professional in the space as well. It's a very beautiful ethos. You also have, in your leadership and business, also invoked Gita many times. What are some of these? Would you expand a little bit on that? Because it'll be lovely to hear it from you again.
So, seva bhav means what? It is that, the way you give, according to me, there are 4 ways of giving. If you look at the Gita, they'll always say something which is tamasic. Every action of yours is really 3 modes, whether it is tamasic, rajasic, sattvic. Tamasic is a mode when you give to somebody who doesn't deserve. Rajasic is the mode when you give, but the reason behind when you want to give is that you want your name to be there. More than the giving, it's the name that is important. The third is sattvic. The sattvic is the way of giving when you are giving not because of your name, but because you want to actually benefit somebody. So it's really like giving without any reason to get your name known. And that is the better, higher method of giving. But the best mode of giving, the Gita says, is when you give, when you think you are a mere instrument of the Lord. So in that case, when you are giving with, that's why we thought of, seva bhav is nothing new. It is inherent in our Indian tradition.
Yes.
Which means when you give, you're giving to somebody who's at the same level as you, and you are giving and you are having joy giving it. It's not that I'm giving to somebody at a higher level, I'm at a higher level, the other person at a lower level. So just as a mother who's nursing her baby goes through difficulty, it's not that, there are so many nights you have to keep awake and so much of inconvenience if you look at it like that. But she gives it out of love.
Yes.
So that's the same way when we give somebody, when we do something, it's not out of charity in that sense, but it is out of giving with love, with karuna, with compassion and love. So that is seva bhav, and that's what we've been trying to do in all our on all our activities. So the core of our foundation is based on seva.
Yeah, the core, and your personalities also, I can feel that at the core of it all is the desire to do good and to be of service, and that is a very beautiful emotion. Thank you for expanding on it. I've been very inspired by it for more than a decade. Dr. Swati, you became the first president of ASSOCHAM as well. An additional responsibility that puts you at the center of many, many influential people who are watching you. With from your vantage point of healthcare, of business, and then in a community of influential people, how have you been able to, see the possibilities or tie in some of the possibilities that can benefit people?
Yes, so ASSOCHAM had never had a woman as president. For that matter, all the apex chambers of commerce did not have at that time women. So it was a pioneering effort, and I created a kind of mini revolution because we had 100 committees. I made them all women.
Oh, really?
That year, 100% women. So whether it was, highways to banking to nuclear energy to, renew iron and steel, I found women everywhere and made them into in charge of that whole association for that time being. It was a very interesting time because at that time, India's growth was 9%, and I met nearly 40 heads of state. That was a privilege which you can't get in 1 year, to meet everybody from President Obama onwards. But, I realized one thing, that women did not have a voice in politics, in healthcare, in media at that time. And having that voice, I thought, was very important.
Yeah.
Just for example, the healthcare research is done mostly on men, and it is not done on women and children. So many of the diseases that affect women, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and so on, very little research was done. And therefore, the great fluxes that a woman has in her body, not studied at all.
Yeah.
And so this, I think, brought attention to the fact that more research needs to be done. Women need to have a voice in home care about their children, about their families, and mental health at that time was very new. It wasn't even a known word. But to bring that to the attention was something that I liked to do in that year.
That's, yes. We keep saying this in our sector, that one big barrier is getting women into workforces in different sectors. But the other one, which we don't speak about that often, is women in leadership roles. Because unless women get into leadership roles, the systemic shifts don't start happening. You can accommodate the crowd, but change happens when you have women leaders, and you're saying the same thing.
Yes.
Here. It does take a lot. You have always spoken about duties and responsibilities, how to balance the power that you have with the responsibility that your chair gives you. And there have been some big wins in your life. How do you then come? And one is, can you recall any big win that was really, really heady for you as well as for you? And then how do you center yourself back and say, this is one more big thing and we move on?
So we've had, fortunately, we've had good enough successes.
Yes.
And where do I begin? So the fact that when we entered the pharmaceutical industry, we had no experience of pharma. it was a totally new industry for us. It was a small multinational, which was in terms of the ranking, ORG used to rank in terms of size, it still does, companies. And we were, I think, 48th. And by this was in 1988. By 2000, we had said earlier on that we'll be amongst the top 5. And actually, we were amongst the top 5 in such a short period. So in that sense, many people would say it was heady. We sold part of our pharmaceutical business in 2010. That was, and the valuation that we got was the highest globally for any formulations, generic formulations business. But these things happen. According to me, this is where we speak about the Gita, which talks about equanimity. Yeah. It is like in the ocean, there are high tides and there are low tides. But the ocean, if you look at it, really remains calm. So that's the example that one must try and follow. Because when there is good times, there will be bad times. So there is no point in just, being ecstatic at one time and being depressed at the other. And this is the way of life. I mean, I don't see anybody who has only had a upward swing and nobody, so we have to understand that. And that's what at least I understand. So I'm not ecstatic when it is great, but I'm not depressed when things don't go our way.
You both have the same view of it, or sometimes you have to balance each other out?
He doesn't feel excited about anything. It's always calm. And he says it's just a drop. If, the rivers come into the ocean, the level still remains the same. And so he's a bit like that. It doesn't matter that the river's overflowing or it's less, but the ocean is the same.
This beautiful quality, this inner stability of the soul, if I may call it, is something people just aspire to, especially now when wealth is quite sudden. It happens suddenly. People are also unable to manage the headiness of the wealth. Valuations happen and wealth happens. How should one even attempt to be like this?
I think really one must recognize that if it goes up, it can go down. So if you're extremely heady at that time, you may come down as well. So this is all right. I mean, this is par for the cause. This is what everybody has.
The sea of life.
This is what we've been, what do all the scriptures say? Please think of this. Ram. Why was the Ramayana? Why did the Lord appear as Ram in this world? Only to teach us a lesson. At the time when he was being coronated, he was asked to leave the kingdom and go to the forest for 14 years with nothing with him and take his wife with him. So this is the lesson that you can be at the height one day. You can still be at the, you have to be brought, you can be brought down. I can talk of, I don't want to talk about individuals, but you see how many heady people who had valuations of several $1 billion have come down. So life is like this.
Yeah.
So
within months.
Yes.
Sometimes within days.
Yes. So you have to just take it in the stride.
Yeah.
And that's what our teaching is. And if we absorb it, then we are much happier. You may not feel I'm excited, but I can tell you that I'm happier than most people are, at least I believe, because...
Well, how easy or difficult is it to imbibe these qualities in our children, in our larger families?
I think it's the only way you can imbibe this is talk about it, but you have to act like that. I think example is the only way. You can keep on talking, you can keep on, giving all these big pravachans, but it doesn't help. At the end of the day, if you practice it, they see it happening, then I'm sure they will do it. Because I'm actually very happy. If you see both our children, Nandini and Anand, are really very grounded and value-based. And so is the way now Nandini's children are older, they are 14 and 12, the way she has also brought them up is value-based. So,
I'd like to give you one
Yes,
example.
yes.
My granddaughter Anya and my grandson Dev, they go very often to the aspirational districts in remote areas, Sikkim, Orissa, to see how people live in Palgad, where the tribal areas live. And they started a cookie service, making cookies at home, selling it to their friends and their mothers and my friends as well, and earning the money. And then they gave it to an animal shelter where animals who are completely, not important in life, like old cows, old horses, old donkeys.
Neglected.
Geriatric.
Yeah,
and there's
yeah,
a shelter for them somewhere in Lonavala. And they went and gave that check themselves. We were very proud of them because this is where values are built. This is where, and their own work, their own hands had to do the work. And they really did such a fine job that both Ajay and I were very, very proud of the fact. That's,
Yes.
I think, the way values are transmitted down generations.
Yes, and it's gorgeous. I mean,
action.
you were speaking earlier as well about them, and we'd love to speak to them as well. But the fact that your children are taking forward the legacy is such a source of,
Yeah, it's a big source.
deep joy. And the Piramal School of Leadership has focused for more than a couple of decades now on government leadership. You've recognized that there is a serious need to look at government leadership as a source at which scaled systems can impact well-being. How did you come about that early? I mean, right now, a lot of people talk about leadership and all of that, but
so in
your work
some
was way
ways,
ahead of time.
my experience with Pratham, I've been chair of Pratham for, I don't know, a long, long time. It shows that actually if you have to make change in the country, you need to work with government. What we realize is that many people are hesitant to work with government because I think there is with all due respect, a superficial notion that working with government means you need to have political influence or it is corruption and people in government don't want to work. That's actually not true.
That's not true, yeah.
In our experience, if we can show innovation at scale, which is what we do, and if you can then work with government to see that we implement that, then the government is more than happy to actually work with you. Now, let me give you an example.
Yes.
The government today in India spends approximately $500 billion every year in terms of social, whether it is education, whether it's health, whether it's water, and so on. The total contribution of philanthropy in India, I think, is less than 5 billion. It may be 2 or 3 billion. I don't know the exact, somewhere there. But if you can work, therefore, how do you make this 500 billion of the government more efficient is the challenge. Because if in spite of the government spending so much, why are there so many parts of the country which are still living in really bad conditions? You know that. Because though the government wants to give funds, we are not finding it's not getting as efficiently used. So we try to do that. The other thing is that government has a large number of there's a lot of people working in government, but the top leadership of government, the secretaries and all those who are the IAS and all, they are very highly qualified. They are very smart people.
Yeah.
But the middle level is where there is lot more that we can do towards leadership, and they are ignored. And that's why our School of Leadership is actually focused on seeing how we can get the best out of these people. And frankly, their intentions are really good. They want to deliver. In fact, we are expanding this school now, making a much larger initiative. We had started with a smaller school as a test, but this will be about 8 times bigger than that.
Nice.
And it should start next year. And we hope that we can train maybe 50,000 government officials on a yearly basis.
Fantastic. Whenever you're doing something that is this big, that has the ability to impact at a large scale like this, it's also very heady. You want to do more and more and more, and the wins also become very glamorous. At what point does one say, okay, this I should not do, or now it's time to step back? How does that decision get made?
I've not yet come to that, so I don't know. But today, frankly, this year, I've turned 70, so I've decided to give all my time to this. And the aspiration is that we have people, especially, as I said, in Purvodaya, which are in the states of Bihar, Orissa, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Assam. And there are lots of people. How do we get 70 million people out of multidimensional poverty in the next whatever years we
So you're dedicating yourself
so
to
that. That is the prayer and the aspiration. Let's see how it goes.
Rabindranath Tagore said that it is a concept of being twice born. And what he meant was that it's like a bird with an egg. When the egg, is formed, and then when the egg bursts and the bird comes out, that's the first birth. But the second birth is when the bird actually flies. And when it flies towards the limitless, to the clouds and to the sky, and tries to reach the sky. So in a way, we are doing our second birth, twice born, to try and achieve that limitless horizon of where we can impact a large number of people in our country, and perhaps globally too, just by the methods that we are using, by the digital transformation that we are doing. The concept of seva bhav is so powerful. When we spoke about it at Stanford University, I remember, they all were, what is this about? Yes. Or, New York. And so people are very attracted to that thought, that there is a spirit of service. And they wish they had it more in their country. Yes.
But in so many years of doing many, many kinds of things, is there something when you realized, this can be solved in this way? I wish I would have realized this maybe 10 years ago, 15
I don't think
ago.
we have to look at whatever is in the past is the past. You don't look at the future, look at the present. You live in the present and do whatever you can to try and see that it works. And the future will come.
Gives you the idea of why should it be. For example, why should so many people in tribal areas have genetic disorders because they intermarry? And how can they use digital transformation and really communication to improve that? Why should 70% of women have anemia in India? Why should 50% mental health affect women more than men? So I think the past asks these questions. And of course, you have to look at the future and see how you can use technology, how you can use communication, how you can use public health, or how you can use, sheer methods of improving and changing things on the ground.
Yes. Alongside with everything that you've spotlighted, India also still struggles with potable drinking water for a large section of our people, and even today.
So we are working on all this. So when we go, it is really a holistic development that's important. When you talk about multidimensional poverty, you can't only talk about education. You can't only talk about health. You can't only talk about water. So water is important. If you don't have water, you don't have health. If you don't have health, what will you do? Education. If you don't have proper nutrition, you will not have health. Yeah. So these are all interlinked. It's not, the body is a system, and human beings live in a system. So you have to see balance that is done. Just give you one statistic, which is quite this thing about tribal. And the average age, longevity in India today is about 72 years. But in tribal India, which is about 8% of our population, the average age is 11 years less than the rest of India.
My God.
We had gone to meet the Honorable President of India, who is a tribal from Orissa. And when we were discussing, she said that she became president at the age of 64. And she said that in her village, at 64, she was the longest surviving person. There was nobody who had reached that age. So this is what even in today's India, in spite of all that, there is a big gap which we have to
fill. Yes.
fulfill. The average per capita income in the east of many parts of India, like Bihar, let's say, is less than the rest of the country is 2.2 times higher per capita. And many times in the developed states or developed regions, it's 5 times difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not possible. This is not sustainable.
It's not okay. It should not feel okay.
It's yes. And, if we don't tackle this, we are going to have, I'm worried that as we grow, today we'll be, we say by 2028, 2030, we'll be the third largest economy in the world. But who will get the benefits? Those people who are educated, those who are more healthy. So the gap between let's say the haves and the have-nots is only going to increase. So this is not sustainable. As a country, we cannot survive. So it's very important we work together. I mean, I look at Bihar. It has 9% of population of India. But if I look at the CSR, which people give is 1.5% of the total CSR goes to Bihar.
You've clearly been deliberating in much depth about this and many, many other grievous things that others don't think about. I mean, I wish I could templatize this really. But you, Dr. Swati, you rightly said that women have lesser confidence, lesser voice in positions of power also. There's a lot of young women who do admire you a lot, who want to follow your journey. If you had to speak to them, to the younger women who are getting into wealth, this is, I think, the first time in our living memory that generational wealth will also be handed over to women in such large numbers. Women are in more positions of power than ever before. What are some of the things that women leaders, young budding professionals need to keep in mind as they grow, not only as professionals, but also as members of society?
So I think Melinda Gates said it very well. She said that women don't have a voice in healthcare, for example, because so much research is not done on the needs of women. So I would request people to think about that and spend more time in finding ways to give women a voice, whether it is in business, whether it is in healthcare, whether it is in whichever field in which women are working in. It is better that we can uplift them and give them a voice and see what they need. Sometimes they themselves don't know what they need till somebody tells them that, have you done for example, your blood test or your checkup? No, my husband has done it. I haven't done it.
Yes.
So they give up for their families. They give up for their children. They give up even nutrition for their children and for their husbands, but they don't look after themselves. And I think women need that uplift. They need that voice. They need that sangat of women doing things for each other.
Yes.
I think I saw a very good example of that is in the women's cricket match this time, how they all looked out for each other and they really wanted to be with each other. And when somebody had trouble, they would, pick them up and try and uplift them too. So I think we need that sense of community. We need to have that positive upliftment of women in our country.
I'm going to give you an example of empowerment. You talked about intergenerational. So today, like our daughter Nandini, she is the chairperson of our pharmaceutical business. And when a woman is in the leadership position, what impact can happen is what I'll tell you. Recently, I'd gone to our pharmaceutical plant in Pithampur in Madhya Pradesh. And there they got almost, as an experiment, women to work on the shop floor itself at the same level as men. And when I met them and I spoke to them and I spoke to our team over there, they said that the productivity of these women was equal to that of the men. So why is it that in so many places, in the same job, with the same output, why is a woman paid less than that of a man? So the cricket example is actually a very good example. What they did a couple of years ago, the BCCI, is to give equal pay to both men and women. So I think we have to try and push all this as much. We run a fellowship which is called the Karuna Fellowship, which is for women. Women who are from, let's say, disadvantaged backgrounds, in the sense that they may have had some, they may have had early marriage, they may have had they may have been widowed, they could be separated, and so many other challenges. How do you make them come back into mainstream society is what we've been now training them and giving them opportunities. So then they get the respect in the community. And if you have your own sort of economic, if you have some economic wealth with you, then you can really have a voice to say, and you will not be treated like a parasite, but in fact, you're an asset. So that's what we've been trying to do. And it has had really good benefits. You spoke about what we do with Edelgive in Gadchiroli. Now, you will find that there are girls who are going there as much as boys. So there's no difference. According to us, our fellowship, which is the other Gandhi Fellowship, which today we have about 700 every year, and we have a alumni of about 4,000. 50% are girls there. So we have to give opportunities. No girl is less. In fact, honestly, when I find today in colleges, if there is a reservation that is needed, it is for boys. There are more girls who are coming to college than there are boys.
Especially in the biological sciences.
No, in every area.
No, it is in fact,
banking,
it is right now a matter of much concerns that we may be neglecting the boys in the whole process. We'll have to have a balanced approach to how to ensure both genders get their, or all genders get their space.
All children should have.
All children should have their.
So we have to give encouragement, and we have to talk about these things.
Yes. Fantastic. But Dr. Swati, when you were also speaking of your leadership in ASSOCHAM and in your basically your entire life, you were speaking about the way women need to speak up more, need to be more confident. We as a community and as a society need to give them more space. Even in philanthropy, we keep seeing that women shy away from owning their philanthropy. They are either part of a group or they're part of the duo. But you have always had your own personality. You've spoken for what you believed in. You both are clearly very aligned, but I'm sure there have been many discussions going on also. What would you like to see in the young women who are, making wealth and would be owning their philanthropy very soon?
So to directly answer that question, I think it's about women who, women network very well compared to men. Men still like to do things on their own. You ask for a direction. My husband will say, no, I can do this. I can do this on my own. Well, I'll probably ask someone. So it's just the idea of networking. They're very good at it, especially with children, with even as the president of ASSOCHAM, I used to call my banker friends and say, look, I'm meeting the Reserve Bank governor. What should I tell him? And they would tell me instantly. So I think just like that, philanthropy, in a sense of community, doing things together, is very, very conducive. And when you say that I'm doing something, for example, I'm trying to do a compassion training for doctors. It is assumed that doctors are compassionate. They're naturally compassionate, but it's not so. And so I teach them about a cognitive-based compassion training, which we are doing with Emory University, and train a large number of people, but doctors weren't part of it. So now started doing in my alma mater. But it is many of times the funding comes from other women who want to network and help this cause. So it's so nice that that's the way we kind of do things in a network.
When we put together the Edelgive Hurun list every year, we keep seeing, now we are seeing some young names come up more often. But otherwise, we've seen the trend that giving and philanthropy is something people say they will do when they have time, when they grow much older, and they want to learn before they give. So we lose a lot of years of a young person of influence. what should be done to encourage this much earlier? How does it become a part of societal life?
I think it's as important as anything else you do in life. Actually, if you look at it, the essence of anybody's life is to do seva and giving, which we have to appreciate. And, beyond a point, the joy that giving gives is more than the joy of buying a fancy Louis Vuitton and Hermes. So if we can appreciate that, I think, so the way of giving, according to me, is not only giving to get joy. One has to not only give, but one must do some action. You have to, whatever action one wants to do, if that person does it, then you'll see the impact.
You mean
of what
get involved?
Get involved in whatever,
yes.
which way.
Yeah. Mr. Mariwala said the same thing, I mean, doing it, getting into it is what gives you the high.
Meet the people who are your beneficiaries. That's the very best way of judging.
Yeah.
And then they tell you how it has impacted them.
When you see work, do you sometimes feel that, oh my God, there's so much more to do? Does it also get frustrating?
Oh, it's the limitless bird I talked about.
Yeah.
I once gave a talk in the US about somebody who said, oh, your country has this, your country has that, your country has that problem. And I said, well, I'm so glad I get up in the morning, every morning, and say, there's so much to do. And I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. So there's just a never-ending need for seva bhav. And I feel that whatever we can do to ameliorate those problems, those deficiencies. And when you talk to the beneficiaries, the joy they give you, the feedback they gave you, okay, this has helped me, this has helped me everywhere.
And we are at the end of this conversation, but if there was one word you would think of that the entire process of giving, being involved in larger society gives you, one emotion that it gives you that no amount of money and no amount of wealth can satisfy, what would you both can have different words. What would you?
Yes. You start, Ajay.
So I'm going to give, before we end, I'm going to give you one story which is of great value to me.
Yes.
This is, again, I'm going back to the Ramayana. As I said, the Ramayana is teaching us the way of life. Now, at the time when Ram's army was at the southernmost part of India, Rameshwaram, wanting to cross over to Sri Lanka to get Sita, they had to build that bridge, the Ram Setu. So everybody, the whole army of Ram, which comprises of all the big bears and the monkeys and everybody else, was lifting the stones and putting it in the ocean. There was a squirrel as well who was taking specks of sand and also trying to put it onto the bridge. That's the time when the big bears and the monkeys started making fun of the squirrels, saying that, why are you doing this? You're coming in the way and you're stopping our, you're interrupting our work and you're more a hindrance. And that's when Ram was seeing this and he got very upset. He admonished all the big animals and picked up the squirrel in his hand and said that he is doing as much as you all are doing. For his capacity, he's doing the maximum compared to others. And he stroked the squirrel's back. That's why you find that the squirrel has 2 stripes from that time. So according the lesson is that all of us, whatever big, small is not important, all of us at any stage in our life can make a contribution to the larger good.
Yes.
So that's
and it matters.
Yes, it matters as much as somebody who can do much more.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't matter. It is how much of what you are doing is important.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And Dr. Swati?
No, you asked me for the word, which I would think about. And I think the word is anandam, or joy, which is one of the highest form of being human. And you can have pleasure, which is a different word, but joy is something which is in a little bit with a divine grace.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it is anand.
Thank you. I couldn't have concluded this conversation on a more joyful note. Thank you for such a meaningful conversation. It is not often that we get to see this kind of role model who's deeply entrenched, deeply involved, and understands and empathizes. I'm speaking of both of you as one person, but I'm sorry about that. But it's beautiful to see a unit like this. So more power to you, and I hope you enjoy more of the seva bhav that you are bestowing on everyone, and your giving increases always. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You.
Yep, thank you. The thing what we realized over all the podcasts and content we do is, as soon as it comes to philanthropy, people stop listening, unless they are personally impacted by your tragedy or understand what it is. Like the number of times we've heard from younger people that I still have time, 10 more years and I'll start giving. 10 more years, nobody's waiting.
Number of times that people are against giving to government is 95% of the people don't believe government can.
Yes, that too.